Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so very much for logging on this afternoon and joining the National Training Agency's 11th webinar episode. I am Dr. Patrice Parisils, Manager of Research, Planning and Development at the National Training Agency. And it is my absolute pleasure to serve as your moderator for this afternoon's session. This installment is part of the NTA's ongoing webinar series, a series aimed at informing stakeholders on the developments within the technical and vocational education and training landscape. It is also serving as a mechanism to share information and insight that can support capacity building and the strengthening of our national skills development system. As the organization with responsibility for coordinating TVET in Trinidad and Tobago, and as Trinidad and Tobago's first Univoc Center, the NTA aims to contribute to the improvement of the quality and relevance of TVET through close collaborations with our TVET experts and stakeholders. Today's webinar is entitled Learning Through Competing. And we are hoping that through the presentation of our esteemed presenter, the Acting President and Chair of WorldSkills, Mr. Chris Humphries, that you would be able to gain some insights. Mr. Humphries has a long and distinguished career in vocational training and skills development, and today he has graciously accepted our challenge to delve into this perhaps provocative notion that competition can provide many benefits to training and development. Through his willingness to share his observations and experiences at WorldSkills, we hope that his presentation will motivate some of you to explore and consider novel strategies to advance the efficiency and effectiveness of training within your individual training institutions. Without further delay, please join me in welcoming Mr. Humphrey and invite him now to begin his presentation. Mr. Humphrey, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Patrice, and thank you so much for inviting me to join you today. It's a real pleasure, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yes. So at this point, you share your screen?
I will share my screen, and we will get on with this. That's lovely. Right.
There we go. Nicely done.
There we go. So it's a very great pleasure to be with you all here today, and I'm going to talk to you today about the theme of learning through competing. As Patrice said, my name's Chris Humphries, and I'm acting president of WorldSkills International. But I've been an active participant in competitions for many years, and I hope to sort of excite you with some of the passion that I feel that competitions can create and the real value it can stimulate for your TVET system. Let me briefly talk about WorldSkills itself. WorldSkills is a membership alliance of governments and organizations who've come together to try and really transform the skills of the world. We want to achieve real impact by increasing individual opportunity, by mainstreaming skills excellence, by enhancing industrial performance, and improving economic effectiveness. It's the largest organization of its kind in the world and has a current membership of 84 countries and regions. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that later. But before I do, let me at least tell you a little bit about myself. I've worked in the area of skills and vocational education really since the late 80s, early 90s in the United Kingdom, and had a varied career to exploring this from both the perspective of the education and training system, but equally as a representative of British business concerned to ensure that the skills of our young people are matched to the needs of the economy. I started with WorldSkills in 2000 when I was invited by the UK government to take over the chair of WorldSkills UK, and to be honest, I didn't actually know what it was at the time. It was one of the world's great mysteries that something as major as WorldSkills could have been such a well-kept secret. But that is changing, and I wanted to tell you a little bit about more. But before we talk about skills competitions, I wanted to talk about competition in general and sport in particular, because I hear people say to me, skills competitions are elitist. They're about celebrating the few. Not for me, they're not. For me, they are about motivating, raising aspirations, and increasing opportunities for the many. I was chair of WorldSkills London 2011, the biennial skills competition organised by WorldSkills, which the London Guardian newspaper at the time called the real Olympics. We positioned and we chose to bid for holding the competitions in 2011 because it was the year before the London 2012 Olympics, where this young man on the screen in front of me made quite a splash in terms of his success. But we pointed out, and the Guardian pointed out, that WorldSkills London 2011 was actually the real Olympics, in their words, because it celebrated the skills that made the 2012 Sporting Olympics possible. Engineering, construction, logistics, IT, hospitality. Without those, there'd be no Olympics. And that was the basis of our bid. I remember Keshawn Walcott performing in 2012, a fantastic achievement for both him and the Trinidad and Tobago team. But of course, the big win for your country wasn't just his victory and the medal, but the dramatic upsurge in young people's interest and participation in sport. And he provided a powerful young champion's voice to increase respect for sport and to increase participation in it. Now, so why is competition good in sport, essential for physical and mental health, key to youth development and resilience, but somehow bad for learning and skill development? Why is excellence important for sport, but competence good enough for skills? Because if you look at the list of powerful things that competition and sport bring, they're inextricably linked. They're not just about celebrating individual success, because competitions inspire initiative and excellence. One of the most powerful tools they provide is to improve the skills of the teacher, the sporting coach, because they learn from watching and seeing what others do. It drives research for better understanding of how to succeed. And it undoubtedly underpins youth development and resilience, just as the excitement and passion of a skill can do. Now, of course, we consider sport and competition to be essential for the physical and mental health of all, young and old. And of course, you even have a ministry for sport and youth affairs because that's how important it is. Okay. Now, in my view, the real benefits of competition in skills are the same. They're not about the few who win. They are about the many whose lives can be shaped through them. And I believe there are 5 dimensions to the benefits that skills competitions bring to your TVET system. The first is that they attract young people to VET, and I'll talk a bit more about each of these in detail. They now allow you and ensure that TVET provision can keep pace with industry and technology change. They really support the development of effective private-public partnerships for both investment in TVET and for sustainability. They enhance TVET outcomes, and I believe they allow you to take your TVET system and progress young people through competence to excellence. And finally, they can, as part of an integrated program, really help countries transform their TVET systems and their industrial competitiveness. They're critical tools, in my view, for upgrading your national TVET system, allowing you to celebrate youth success, to update your curriculum, to enhance teacher capability. And what I want to talk through now is some of the evidence for these claims of mine. So let me start with attracting young people. The first thing that skills competitions do is enable you to bring the same sort of voice that Keshawn Walcott could bring to sport, the voice of the young person speaking to other young people and speaking from a position of success, of passion and commitment to skills, and being the best sort of ambassador and advocate for TVET that you can have. And the advantage of having regular skills competition is that this cohort of young champions is renewed every 2 years, and indeed in many of our member nations, their success is celebrated at the highest levels by government. In France, for instance, the President of France invites the whole WorldSkills France team to the Élysée Palace every 2 years after the event, celebrates the success and promotes them to the nation. President Putin in Russia does exactly the same thing by inviting the Russian team to the Kremlin. In the UK, we always celebrate the return of our teams and make a fuss of them in the press and the media, and particularly through youth social media. Although an interesting little story here, we do very well in the UK in cabinet making, and we've won gold medals quite a few times over the last 10 to 15 years. And what happens each time one of the young people come back from the WorldSkills competition is that their cabinet, the cabinet they have made in their cabinet making competition, is taken and put on display at number 10 in the welcome hall, in the reception hall when they arrive. And typically prime ministers will say to visitors, this is the real cabinet. Just ignore the people one that makes all the decisions. That's a real cabinet, because that's been built by young hands that are going to shape our nation in the future. So let me then bring this down, because not only do many of those countries have national champions, alumni who they use through social media to promote skills, but WorldSkills itself has that group of young people in the picture there who are selected by our champions from the totality of all the people that participate in WorldSkills. And for 2 years, they serve as what we call the WorldSkills Champions Trust, speaking on public podia around the world with UNESCO, OECD, the International Labour Organization, others, to promote TVET. Without the competition, those voices would not be heard. And let me talk a little bit more about the UK, my own place, because London 2011 had a huge benefit for our nation here as well. We attracted over 200,000 attendees to the event, 65% of whom were young people, but as part of a major promotion throughout the year before the event began. 73% of our young attendees, that's 95,000 people, said that it made them more interested in vet careers. And 81% of the adults who attended said that attending the event would change the career conversation they have with children. But more importantly, look at the numbers on the right, because we had begun a major program of promotion of apprenticeships and TVET in the UK. But what the competition managed to do is to dramatically stimulate youth interest, and not only encourage more young people to join apprenticeships by doubling the numbers over those years, but kept them in apprenticeships over the next 5 years. Now, competitions didn't do this alone. I would never suggest this. But the competitions were a key part of a national integrated program to challenge opinion and to raise participation levels. And the competitions played an essential role in that program in creating that more positive perception and helping to maintain youth interest over time. Another a dimension of why competitions can make a real difference is illustrated here in this slide. And I use the phrase making hidden occupations visible. Many nations report that young people at schools get very limited careers guidance, and most of it is focused on university programs and a very limited range of possible occupations. And often what they fail to find out about is what COVID-19 has caused us to now describe as the essential skills. So, and the truth is that confirmed by multiple careers education research projects is that young people can't and don't choose to be in a career that they can't see. And well-promoted skills competitions, particularly if nations do them as many of us do, holding competitions at the local level, then the regional level, then the national level, that brings young school children into the event and helps them start for the first time to be able to see the full range of career options available. This is a selection of photos from Kazan in 2019, in which young people from the school age are actually using the skills competitions and their associated have-a-go projects and career demonstrations and workshops to get to see those careers and occupations in action firsthand, often in the company of their parents. So being able to see what is otherwise invisible is a critically important skill. Let me turn to the second of my of concerns, which is the TVET provision keeping pace with industry and change. And we seek to achieve this and help all our member nations achieve this through what we at WorldSkills call the WorldSkills occupational standards. We have them for every competition that takes place at the event, and I'll show you that list in a moment. But in order to set out what they are, these are a world-class benchmark of what it is that any highly capable practitioner needs to know, understand, and do in their subject area. We prepare these every 2 years with guidance by our top WorldSkills experts in each of their field, and then update them in consultation with global industry partners and businesses around the world. On top of that, we have them validated by the International Labour Organization and by ESCO, which is the European curriculum and occupational standards body, and ONET, which is the American one. And by doing this validation, we know these WorldSkills occupational standards actually represent the highest standards of excellence in each subject area that you can get. Now, every member nation of WorldSkills gets access to these. They utilize them to review and update their own curricula. And on top of that, they use the model of the WorldSkills occupational standards to provide similar documents for all those other areas of TVET that aren't on our list. Now, I'm not expecting you to read this massive list here, but you'll see it's a huge range of skills across construction, ICT, manufacturing, engineering, transportation, social health and social care, hospitality, and creative arts and fashion. And that's just the ones we do. Combine those with the dozens of others that are organized by WorldSkills Europe, WorldSkills America, WorldSkills ASEAN, and then each member nation. And you literally have access to modern, up-to-date, best practice curricula for almost every subject in the TVET curriculum. Without the competitions, we couldn't do those. Without the competitions, we couldn't produce them. And without the competitions, we wouldn't have the employers willing to work with us on them. Let me touch the third area, effective public-private partnerships. Now, everyone who works in TVET knows how hard it can be to persuade companies to invest in and support their national TVET system. Many countries are willing to, but it's a tough thing to do. But the reality is that what we have found, both nationally and internationally, is that competitions help that process dramatically. So let me talk a little bit then about the value of these public-private partnerships around competition and how major world companies work with us to achieve this. This is the list of just the global sponsors for WorldSkills International. All major international organizations, leaders in their sectors and in their industries, names that everyone would recognize. And every one of those companies invests literally millions with us and with our member nations to advance the understanding of their technology and their tools, their equipment and their facilities, and to make sure they are available to nations within their own systems. And this is just the ones we work with internationally. Now, 3 examples of why they do it, because trust me, these organizations are not doing this just for corporate social responsibility. They're doing it because they believe there is huge value in ensuring that the quality of the students who complete our VET training around the world are the best that they can gain. And 3 examples here of how those companies use this expertise and the value they get from competitions and investing in it. Samsung, one of the biggest IT companies in the world, actually not only invest millions in every competition at the international and regional levels, but they also are so committed to excellence that they actually recruit staff from WorldSkills competitions, competitors at the national, international, and regional levels, are taking over 1,000 of their top new young staff on board from competitions over those years because they see how important it is. Stanley Black & Decker, a different motivation. What they do is they actually take their business customers to all the competitions that they participate in around the world. One, to help their business customers see what quality vet looks like and persuade their business customers to invest in competitions in their own countries. But secondly, to demonstrate that if Stanley Black & Decker equipment is used in competitions, it must be excellent quality. So they get a double win. They promote the quality of their material, but they also create for the country or the competition a real commitment from their business customers to also recommit to vet. A third example, a different again, Lincoln Electric, probably the leading manufacturer of tools for welding, and will place kit in schools and colleges around the world. I think almost every member nation in WorldSkills has got Lincoln Electric kit made available to their schools and colleges, particularly centres of excellence, because from their point of view, if Lincoln Electric equipment is the equipment that young, skilled people learn on, it'll be the equipment they'll want to use when they go to employers. 3 different motivations, 3 different organisations, but all of them gaining benefit and from competitions, and because of that, investing and persuading others to invest in the national competitions of our member nations. Let's move on to my third area, which is my fourth area, which is enhancing TVET outcomes. And here I wanted to talk particularly about how it is that by working through and with a competition structure, our member nations have been able to really improve their training, the quality of their staff and their institutions. Now, not every nation does what I'm about to talk about here, but I will give you some practical examples of countries that do and draw this as a sort of set of examples. But as I said earlier, the WorldSkills standards are updated every 2 years. The WorldSkills competitions draw experts from around the world to participate for about 8 to 10 days. And what that event is for a trainer from your nation, a national expert who's accompanying your competitor to the competition, is essentially an 8-day intensive professional development program. Through that time, they are mixing with the top trainers of the 20, 30 or 40 other nations of the world who are participating in the same event, and they bring together an amazing collection of knowledge, expertise, new approaches, new equipment, new techniques for teaching and learning, and they bring them back home. Now, if a nation doesn't make the best effort possible to capture that learning and to bring it back into its system, then it's missing a fantastic opportunity. Because in many of the nations that do this well, those national experts, having gained this massive professional development program, are then brought back into a coordinated program at the national level for 2 roles. One, to help reshape the national TVET curricula, and I'll give you a practical example of that in a moment, and to rewrite and update those curricula to ensure that they are as close as possible to best practice. And in many of our member nations, the second thing they do is establish or have established national centres of excellence for staff development, in which those experts then run training and development programs at which all the staff in those fields from colleges around the country are brought together so that the learning that is achieved by the national experts at WorldSkills can be cascaded down to staff development in every college and institution in the country. Alongside that, WorldSkills International has established 2 facilities to help ensure that we can support that process. So we have a WorldSkills experts faculty, over 300 of our top training managers in all our sectors around the world, who have come together as an organisation that can provide consultancy, advice and support to member nations, and are called upon regularly to go and work in different countries to help improve their systems and to provide training sessions and professional updating sessions for colleges and individual teachers and learners. And we also have the WorldSkills capacity building centres. 3 of these that operate at the national level and work with governments in both member countries and non-member countries to actually help those nations reshape their total VET system. And at the moment, we have a major development program taking place in Africa, working in partnership with the African Union and drawing more and more African countries into the skills competition system so that they are able to gain the benefits that are currently only available to the more developed nations. Let me look at a second dimension of that, which is what I call the excellence pyramid. And here I'd say, just like sport, participation in events like this matter. If you have a small number of students participating in the event, you will find their performance reaches a reasonable level of excellence. It'll reach the level of a neighbourhood football team that competes with itself and sort of has a great time and becomes reasonable, but they're not actually being challenged from a wider competitive framework. Then they won't reach as high as they can do if there's more students enrolled. And the truth of it is that the broader you can increase participation in competitions, the more teachers, trainers and coaches that have to improve their own skills. And as a result of that, the level of achievement delivered by your TVET providers in the country will increase. It's exactly the same as in sport. The greater the number of participants, the higher level of performance and excellence that is achieved. And so competitions do play a very powerful part in this. And I wanted to give you a specific example from one small nation who has achieved extraordinary things across the whole of education over the last 15 to 20 years. And that's the example of Finland. Now, Finland actually held the WorldSkills International competition in Helsinki in 2005. And they had real problems with their VET system. They were struggling to be able to encourage enough young people to participate. They were struggling to convince parents that their VET provided a credible and valuable career for their children. And they were also struggling to ensure that industry got engaged because industry didn't feel that their college systems were properly tracking industrial change. So they invented what they called the backpack strategy, a brilliant idea. In 2005, after lots of promotion at the school level, they sent every young person in Finland a backpack. And in the backpack was information about all the different careers and information about the competitions and a free ticket to Helsinki. And all their schools gave them a day off, different, structured and staggered to make sure that the event wasn't too overcrowded at any one time. And they attracted 117,000 people to attend their event over the 4 days, 70% of whom were young. And what they did was monitor the effect of the competition and the other actions they took between 2005 and 2008. And what they saw was a 22% increase in participation, from 36% up a further 8 percentage points to 44% in 3 years. Suddenly, TVET became a credible alternative. But more than that, it actually changed the dropout rate and the leaving rate from schools, so that the result was that by 2008, young people were staying on in school an average of 1 year longer. University enrollments actually stabilised and dropped a bit. TVET enrollments rose and have stabilised. And they did it really by doing 2 other things. And as I said earlier, competitions can't do this alone. This was an integrated national program, and they did 2 things. They integrated competitions into the whole school and college curriculum across Finland. Every school, every institution, every course had integrated competitions in it, and they used the Finnish WorldSkills experts to both update their TVET curriculum every 2 years to industry standards and to retrain every teacher in the Finnish TVET system every 2 years. And, when you think about the commitment and investment that represents, it's not surprising that the Finnish education system is widely considered to be amongst the very best in the world, both in its general education and its technical education. And as I said, not competitions alone, but a critically important part of an integrated program that increased and improved both the retention rate in school and the participation rate in TVET. Let me sort of start to move towards then the holistic impact about how all of this can come together to help a country transform its own system. Let me start with a large country, Russia, because it's a fascinating story, is Russia. Russia joined WorldSkills quite late, only in 2012. They participated for the first time in Leipzig in 2013, and they were shocked, absolutely shocked at how poorly they performed. They came 43rd place at the event, winning no medals, and not one of their competitors even reached the standard of excellence that is considered to be the midpoint in performance in these competitions. They were shocked to an extraordinary extent, and they set out on a determined 5-year program to really transform. Now, if I say to you here that this headline I'm about to show you was the headline on the leading education newspaper, the Times Education Supplement in Britain in 2019. And its headline was How WorldSkills Transformed Education in Russia. Not my headline. This was the Times Educational Supplement. And it published a major story about how Russia transformed their system in 5 years. And this is some of the headlines. As I said, joined in 2012, Leipzig, terrible result. They did a number of things, but at the heart of it was two. One, they adopted the WorldSkills standards wholesale, and where the international standards didn't exist, they went to their colleagues in Europe or their colleagues in other nations, and they borrowed, adapted, and then rewrote all their own TVET curricula to match those standards at each of the appropriate levels. They brought in specialists from other WorldSkills members, voluntarily from countries like Korea, like Singapore, like the UK, like Australia, and they ran major developmental programs with their WorldSkills members, experts, teaching some of the best trainers they had in Russia, who in turn cascaded those down through the system. And over 5 years, their system has been transformed. They came second in 2019, but more than that, they are so convinced that from the very top of Russia, competitions and competition standards are now integrated into primary and secondary schools, training for the adults, into high-tech companies, into university training, and a program they called Future Skills. And they fundamentally have used that to inspire skills excellence and are reaping the rewards. Now, they did not do this for the benefit of the 60 competitors who participated in Kazan, I can assure you. Their reason for doing it was because they believed their economy would benefit profoundly from being one of the highest quality vet systems they could afford to produce, and they needed to prove it to industry, to parents, and to young people if it was actually to attract the students and deliver the outcomes sought. And a quote, if I may, from one senior Russian education official after the competition in Kazan in 2019. They said, vocational skills in our country are now taught at a very respectable level. Not boasting, just respectable. And our experts and top professionals have mastered global level technology, making us capable, finally, of competing with the countries that we once learned from. And that, for me, is the heart of what an international network should bring. Learning from others, the advancement of all. But of course, Russia is a massive country with huge funding and a political system that, well, if I say, can facilitate rapid change. So let me look a little bit closer to Trinidad and Tobago with another example. Let me look at one of your near neighbours. Isn't that a wonderful picture? Oh, I love that picture. One of your near neighbours, Colombia. Now, Colombia has also had a relatively recent experience. Colombia joined WorldSkills in 2008. But from the moment they joined, they've been concerned to understand whether they are getting benefits and what benefits they've achieved from competitions and their membership. So they've been tracking their progress and monitoring the outcomes and changes to their SENA training programs since that time. This chart and the associated comments come from a senior Colombian official, not me. They looked at their participation from the first year of performance in Calgary 2009 through to Kazan last year. And of course, in 2009, they started small. They only had 6 competitors. They only operated in 6 skills. To be honest, that's all we allow new members to do because there is a learning curve. And they ranked 43rd out of 46 nations, and they won very little. But they went back and the SENA training programs that they introduced and the way in which they developed a whole range of new, what they called labour competence standards, the skills standards, and built excellence workshops and started to use regional competitions to create a sort of sense of challenge between their region. And in London, they participated in 14 skills and raised their standards. In Leipzig, still further, they started to win serious numbers of medallions of excellence. They started to be ranked in the top 8 countries of the world in some of their skills, but particularly the ones that were most important to them. And finally, in 2019, out of 21 skills, they actually achieved 2 bronze medals, and on top of that were ranked 29th out of the 62 nations that they competed against. This is a dramatic improvement. And what SENA will say is that the training centres that they established, the lessons they learned, the partnerships and mentoring they got from other member nations, the regional competitions that they hosted to encourage each region to compete against the other, and 2 very significant projects they undertook with WorldSkills members have actually delivered this to happen. And their national statement now is that the quality of SENA's training programs has been consistently improving as a direct consequence of participation in international competitions. So, what am I arguing? Well, I think I'm arguing 2 things. That there are 2 dimensions here, and sensible countries are taking advantage of both of them. The first is that they run national competitions and they use them to stimulate youth interest, attract employer engagement, to encourage colleges and providers to want to do better, and to begin to establish and gain some of the benefits. But in addition, they add to this by drawing on the WorldSkills offer, the network offer that is available to anyone who's a member of WorldSkills and aspires to gain from this. The answer is that your competition system really must be part of that well-integrated program of change. Competitions are not an easy solution. This is not a simple process. They require careful design, real people expertise, a sustained commitment over time. I showed that with all of the examples. But the benefits of such a national system really can make a massive change to the value and success of your TVET provision. And when I say you can be a member of WorldSkills and gain benefits, again, not expecting people to read all of this, I just want to give you a few examples. Our Champions Trust that helps support countries to establish champions alumni groups and start to create a powerful voice of really talented and well-expressed young people who can sell TVET to their own colleagues and peers. the experts faculty, which actually draws together a resource on which members can draw on to improve and redesign and update and upgrade their own national competitions. One-to-one mentoring is available. Every time a new country joins WorldSkills, we offer mentoring support. For instance, Kenya has just joined, and France has already teamed up with them and is offering a complete and comprehensive support system for their work in looking at how they can use competitions in their VET systems. Regional projects like the Skills Development in Africa, which we're conducting with UNESCO, ILO, the World Bank, and the African Union, is a classic example of how you can make a regional difference in some of the most sort of underdeveloped and needy countries of the world. And finally, World Youth Skills Day, a project established by WorldSkills and the UNESCO to try and make the fact that skills matter and skilled young people matter an international process. So my final comment is this. Look, the growth of WorldSkills from 34 members in 2000 to 84 members in 2020 was phenomenal. Our membership now represents 80% of the world's population, 90% of global GDP. From an international organization working alone, we now work in partnership constantly with UNESCO, ILO, the World Bank, OECD, and others. But we don't actively chase members. We'll respond to member inquiries, but we don't chase them. Members come to us and countries join because they believe that the value they can gain from membership is real, that competitions don't just serve the few, they serve the system. They help you develop and change youth opinion, raise TVET standards and quality, and genuinely improve the competitiveness of your industry. But at the heart of all of this, what works in your nation depends on what you choose to do and how you choose to do it. But the evidence is clear, and so is the impact. If it's done seriously, with purpose, and as a part of a national program of TVET transformation and excellence, competitions matter as much or more in skills as they do in sport. Thank you so much for listening. I'll stop sharing, I think.
Yes. So thank you so very much, Chris, for that very informative and inspiring presentation. I personally love the distinction that you made between excellence and competence, and how important it is at the level of the sporting arena, and how much we can perhaps infuse it into skills training. So we are now at the point where you are asked to field some questions from our listening audience. So I will be their voice. So be patient with me. One of the first questions is tied perhaps in terms of your examples thus far. So there was one listener is wondering whether the successes that have been accrued through WorldSkills are also tied to the maturity of the TVET system within the individual countries. Trick question.
I think the answer is, to a degree, inevitably. But what we've learned, and I think it's particularly been helpful for the last few years of our work in Africa, is that our members, even probably in the last 20 to 30 years, have all been through phases where TVET has become unpopular, difficult, challenging, where interest has waned, where investment has dropped, where standards have fallen. And I don't think nations aren't that different in this. The TVET experience, every time I talk to anyone, I hear the same thing. And that, for me, is why the mentoring opportunities are so important. I think any nation trying to do this alone is failing to recognize that almost every other country has gone through something similar or over the last 20 to 30 years, and that we are much stronger working together to solve these problems because the range of options that we have available to us and the range of options we can think of are so much better. We now have free, and there'll be more capacity building centres that are specifically designed to support countries where their TVET system is underdeveloped, because we realise that needs more intensive work. But also the benefit of working with UNESCO, ILO and others is that they will partner with WorldSkills mentor countries to actually help bring their expertise, their knowledge base and their consultants and advisors together to create a more joined up program. And so, yes, it is tougher with systems where systems are less developed, but actually it is also evident from what we've learned so far that a difference can be made if you ask for help and if help is given.
Okay, but segueing on your last response, a lot of this benefit is tied to WorldSkills membership, correct?
No, I don't think it is. I think some of it is. The reality is that if you can organise competitions in your own country, most of the benefit comes from the local competitions. If I look at the UK as an example, and believe me, when I started in 2000, we were not proud of our TVET system. When we had some very good features, but it was not a coherent and high-performing, excellent system. And what we discovered with competitions is that the more we spread them down to the local level, the more benefits we got. If we could get one college to compete with another and had the rest of their students cheering along the side, it made them all want to go to the regional one. It made them all want to go to the national one. And we've actually been able to build a cadre of colleges who, because they encourage it at the local level, actually get a lot of the benefits by simply learning from neighbouring colleges, neighbouring institutions and regional colleges just how to do things in a more effective way. And those lessons come very local. Undoubtedly, there is more to be gained at the international level, but it's on top of what can be gained by national competitions. But the other thing is, if you get some external advice on how to establish an effective competition system, and this is a benefit of WorldSkills membership, then that can help. But remember, we have countries who come to us not ready for membership and draw on mentors from the WorldSkills nations before they're members to actually help get their system into a state of readiness for joining. So we can provide assistance to non-member countries too through processes of mentoring and capacity building.
Right. So one question that would be of most critical import to a lot of our listeners would be in reference to those WorldSkills occupational standards that you indicated that you do already possess and are revisited every 2 years. Is there any system or mechanism by which someone who is not a WorldSkills member country is able to access those standards?
Sure, they're public documents.
They're awesome. So just shoot you an email. We want.
The thing to remember is this: they're not tailored for a country.
Right.
They're not designed. They're meant to specify what excellence looks like.
Right.
But any vocational training system has tiers. You might call them level 4, 5, 6, level 7, 8, 9, level 1, 2, 3. There are tiers. You need to design your curricula so they carry you from the starting point where they leave school to the end point where you wish them to be. And you need stopping off points for learners along the way. So they might get a certificate, then a diploma, and so on. So there is still a lot of work to be done. What these provide is the model for excellence. Right. And they provide the sort of, if you like, the top level at which you'll need to design your curricula to reach. So Russia had those standards, but they had to do a lot of work in designing the stages of curricula that make up the different levels of performance. And our aim is to always be able to tell you what industry is expecting now, but it is still necessary for the country to do the curriculum design work and the pedagogical work to design the teaching and learning processes in order to start from the level at which young people leave school and help them progress to the levels at which industry are willing to recruit. And I would say in the context of the WorldSkills standards, we would have probably a 4-tier system in the UK of certificate and level diplomas. And this would be, the WorldSkills standards would typically be 4th tier. So you've still got to do that work of getting young people up.
Okay, well, thank you for that clarification.
In our view, in our view, they are the tools that enable you to start, because they give you the conversation you can have with employers and then work with employers to sort of design the intervening curriculum.
Okay, I certainly was not operating with with that understanding. So thank you for reminding us that even though there's a standard for what excellence is going to look like, we still have to do all the groundwork and preparation that would get us to that point at the different levels.
And there are many, many models from both member and non-member nations around the world of what those curricula look like and how the different levels can be done. But they still have to be tailored to your national requirements, to your national industry standards. And so it's not a simple matter of simply sort of taking another nation's system. Adaptation and fit to your national requirements is always an essential part of the process.
One of the slides that you had presented would have given a breakdown of some of the standards and the areas of competition.
Yeah.
Right. So one of the viewers wanted to know whether this mechanism, this strategy, has been applied to the health sector and agriculture.
Right, not as much as will be liked. Part of the reason is that in many countries now, health occupations, including nursing, have become graduate occupations. They're degree programs, university programs. They often separate the theoretical learning from the practical application, whereas TVET tries to do it together. And so nursing has not been an easy one. We do have health and social care as one of the subjects, but it's difficult to match it to the sort of way in which most countries run their medical training. Agriculture, however, is a gap in our provision. It is a gap in our coverage, and there are actually discussions amongst the members at this moment to actually look at how we can recognise that agriculture is an incredibly important part of so many nations' economies and bring agricultural skills in. So my answer to that one would be not yet, but please watch this space.
Okay, so I'm sorry to be a pest, Chris, but someone is insistent. They want to know specifically how can they access your WorldSkills standards? What is the process that they will need to follow? Recognizing, yes, it is a public document, but who do they write? Where do they shoot their emails? They're excited to get the information.
It might be easier, Patrice, if we take this offline.
Sure.
And if you get the contact details of your individual, then I will look at how we can
facilitate. Okay, understood. So one of our last questions, because I know that you have things to do and you've already taken time. We're so thankful for this. Competitions and even the examples that you would have referenced. You have persons who do very well and those who do not score or do not get any awards or recognitions and stuff. And you did indicate that from where you stand, there's a benefit to those persons nonetheless. But young people are young people. Egos get hurt, they get embarrassed. Is there any system, any formalized arrangement or briefing that you have with your member countries in terms of dealing with unsuccessful competitors going back into their countries?
Well, of course, you're absolutely right. And we always want to be sure that any young person that comes to the international competition has the level of skill and the level of resilience that will help them to ensure they survive. And we do understand, and every nation puts in place as we all do for our sporting champions, we put in place support programs, counselling programs, and so on. But remember, every one of our international competitors has already been, is their national champion. These are never losers. They are their national champion. They don't get to come to WorldSkills. And, any sporting competitor knows that sometimes they'll win and sometimes they'll lose. And part of the preparation for young people is to recognise that that's the reality in work too. And it's the reality in much of life. But the thing we always remind people of is that you don't get to WorldSkills International unless you're your national champion. You don't get to the national champion unless you've also to the national championships unless you're also a regional champion, and you don't get to a regional championship unless you're a local champion. So remember, at every step along the way, the important thing is right down at the bottom of the local competitions is to encourage, recognise, and reward everyone that participates, and then from there on in, everyone has been a champion.
Yes, thank you for that reminder. So, ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the end of our question and answer session. And I want to once again, on behalf of the National Training Agency and all the webinar team, to thank Mr. Humphrey for taking time out today to spend with us and give us his perspective and really ignite a thought in terms of how we can continue to build a strong foundation so that we can utilize all these mechanisms that are available out there, from mentorship and one-on-one coaching from other best practices. So, Mr. Humphrey, thank you so very much. And to you, our listening and viewing audience, we want to say thank you so much again for joining and logging on to us. I know at this point, persons are beginning to get saturated with this online experience, but your willingness to still join and participate this afternoon is truly appreciated. As is the norm, I want to remind you that this webinar and our past episodes can be viewed on the NTA's YouTube channel. And as always, I implore you to be safe, be blessed, and do have a productive afternoon. Until we meet again, bye everyone.
Thank you, Patrice. Bye.